Welcome to the Arc of Justice on Brookline Interactive Group's Big TV. I'm Eric Hyatt. Today is the first of a three-part series on the response to anti-Asian bias in Brookline. My guest today is Susan Park. Susan is a Brookline parent, a town meeting member representing Precinct 2. She serves on the advisory committee, and she has circulated a petition in support of the Asian community in Brookline. I'm excited to learn from Susan what drives her activism and what others can do to support our Asian community. Please welcome Susan. Welcome to the show. Could you please tell us your name and how you first came to Brookline?
Yeah, thank you, Eric, for having me on this show. My name is Susan Park, and I came to Brookline about 6 years ago. My husband and I were serving overseas, and we came here because of his work.
So, you just did you pick Brookline specifically, or do you have background in Massachusetts? I'm always really interested how people came exactly to Brookline.
Oh, like exactly. Okay. So we have friends who already were living in Newton, and I reached out to her, and I have a friend who's also a realtor, and they were saying that if, because my husband also walks to Longwood, and if they were saying, like the best choices would be Brookline or Newton. If you lived in Newton, you're gonna have to drive in. If you live in Brookline, you could walk, and we were like, let's do the walking. That's how we picked Brookline.
That makes perfect sense. I think we're a home for a lot of Longwood professionals of all different sorts, just for the reason that you said. Did you grow up around here? I didn't ask you that either.
Now, I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, in,
Ah,
by the Villanova area. Yeah.
got it. Well, I'm glad to have you in Brookline. 6 years. I consider like 7 years, you're kind of a native at that point, like one more winter. Uh, that's my personal opinion. Anything else you could tell us or that you'd like us to know about your family and your interests, etc.? Just something, about you.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, I'm a mom. I'm very proud of that. I have three daughters and I have a wide range. My oldest just graduated from BU.
Oh, wow.
COVID, so she didn't get to walk yet. My second daughter's in university, and my third is a sixth grader. And I
Oh
have a
my goodness.
furry friend, Quincy.
I know I keep hoping that Quincy will make a cameo appearance during our interview today.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I'll lure him with my snacks. Yeah, he's taking a nap right now.
Wow. Well, that's all really very interesting. So 3 kids, one dog, Brookline for 6 years. Um, And I have come to know you over the past year through pretty much what I would call your activism or engagement with issues in the town. And, I would love to ask for our viewers who don't really know the full story, can you tell us some of the issues going on in Brookline and nationwide specific to the Asian experience, in your opinion?
Sure. Yeah, so around like probably about a year ago when COVID hit, um, shortly after we started hearing some narrative through the Trump administration about, the Kung Fu virus, perhaps like Chinese people, China being the cause of it, etc. And so then I started hearing, actually, I heard the select board really encourage people to please keep visiting the Chinese restaurants, and I was thinking, wow, is it that bad? Like our local select board is saying, go visit the Chinese restaurant, Asian restaurants. And I also think, because of COVID and how it's so unusual, like with the shutdown, I think a lot of businesses were hurting. But um, so unfortunately, the hate crimes were escalating. We started seeing in the news about elderly Asian men being pushed to the ground and some of them dying. Another Asian man being slashed across the face with a knife. And just even a few weeks ago, there was a 65-year-old Asian woman who was basically just attacked And what was really disheartening was that there was actually a security guard or a bystander watching, and then he just like shut the door. But what was really just, made me so upset was the Atlanta shootings, the 8 that were murdered, 6 were Asian women and 4 were Korean women, and I'm Korean American. And so that just really pushed some buttons because I, you know, totally thought that could have been my mother or my sisters or my friends. And that's what's been happening. So as a result of that, I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 2, and I'm also on the Brookline Advisory Committee. And I just felt it was my responsibility to reach out to our local town meeting members and our select board and community members, my neighbors, and have them sign a petition. So my colleague and I, Regina Frawley, she's a precinct town meeting member 16, and we started this and we got 250 signatures, which I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of our town for doing that.
I saw your petition a little too late to get on as a signatory, but in any case, what who did that go to? That the petition, who was it delivered to?
Yeah, so we I basically shared it with a lot of the town meeting members, and then um, so a lot of people signed on there, and then just like people who live in my building and like friends who I text, and they all just signed on. And then there was actually a deadline because it was going to go in the paper, and we wrapped it up maybe 5 days later.
Now, I understand that Brookline has a lot of groups and organizations. You mentioned town meeting, advisory committee as groups that you're serving in. Are there also groups that you're a part of that have an Asian focus in this town?
Yeah, so I learned of BAFN, Brookline Asian American Family Network, this year when it's so amazing how the Lunar New Year became a Category 1 holiday. And so when that holiday rolled around and I saw on social media, the people responsible for that, and Ashley Ang and Baffin, and I became acquainted with them really quickly. And so then when all of this started happening, I came alongside Baffin and Chi Chi Wu. And she's also my colleague on advisory committee. So we've been corresponding and just trying to help as much as possible.
That was a very, very distressing series of events that you just detailed, watching violence against people who look like you. And I'm just wondering whether there's, I don't know, an idea of protecting the Asian community. Would you say that's the priority for these groups right now? Or is it more raising community awareness about this topic? It seems like an evolving situation.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it, Eric. I think it is evolving, and I think there's many facets to it. I think it's awesome that our town made a strong statement condemning Asian hate crimes and xenophobia. So I think that was like a great start. And then I know that Baffin has already been putting curriculum together, and I think it's already rolled out in the high school for AAPI curriculum. But I think also in the middle schools, it's going to be rolling out maybe like next fall. But I think like the other thing is what's so important is like what you're doing. Like that was so great that you invited me to your show, like just starting a conversation and just engaging and talking with other Asian Americans and how it affected them. There's also, if you've heard of the Stop Hate, the AAPI Stop Hate link, and that was organized by a nonprofit, um, where if anyone sees any kind of hostility or violence or Asian hate crimes, you can go to that link and report it there. I mean, so that's one link where people can report it so that like once they get the data, they'll know which towns need the most support. But also, I've been working with our own Brookline Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations. And we started a survey, and this survey it's going to be going out through the superintendent like any day now, but it's already been starting to circulate, and so people are encouraged to take that survey. And if you've been like discriminated upon, or if you've received any Asian hate, like to record that there. It is anonymous, so once the data goes to the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, Community Relations, then they'll know how to better support Brookline.
It's really interesting. This show airs on the community channel of Brookline Interactive Group, which means we have a lot of viewers who are probably not as engaged and not as central. They may not be on the Brookline Townwide Facebook page. That's why I do the show in the first place, is to try to reach people that aren't reachable via the normal channels. So for our viewers who have a low level of civic engagement right now, who may be Asian Americans or Asian immigrants themselves, what actions can they take right away to show support and solidarity?
So I think that the best thing that people can do is, well, there's a bunch of things. Like one is take the survey,
Okay.
and even if you want to have witnessed it or seen it, then please take the survey also. You don't have to be Asian American to take it, and but also I also say that this is for anyone who has been um, discriminated upon. Please take it because then we'll know how to better support Brookline. The other thing is, so May is the Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. So for the month of May, like I really encourage people to read an Asian book. I think the Brookline Booksmith, I think they're going to have a display of Asian Pacific Islander books. Go to the local library, uh, frequent Asian restaurants, engage your Asian American neighbors. I mean, and if you were affected at all by this false narrative of, you're Asian, so you have coronavirus, or you could, the best way is to dispel that, is to confront it and to not believe it, and just go that extra mile to try to get to know people of different color, of different, just to understand cultural backgrounds.
It's fascinating to me. I'm a Japanese translator, so I definitely support having an Asian book read this month. I'll make sure to read one myself. But I'm also very interested in what you said, that getting to know people in our community. I don't think everyone is 100% aware that Brookline is 20% Asian of different sorts. And, in that number, we lump together a lot of different ethnicities and nationalities, from South Asian to East Asian, Korean, Chinese, Japanese. These are all very distinct cultures. But in Brookline, that still constitutes 20% of our community. I guess I wanted to go back to something you said a little bit earlier, if that's okay, about the Lunar New Year. And what does that mean to you, that the Lunar New Year is being celebrated in Brookline?
So for me, the Lunar New Year, I mean, personally, when I think of that, I think of family gathering together. And um, in my family, a Korean family, we would celebrate, we would lump it in with January 1st because we're all together anyway. Because oftentimes we celebrate New Year's Eve, and then New Year's. And then on New Year's Day, my mom would make her traditional dumpling rice cake soup with egg on top and a little bit of seaweed, and it's just like a time where we can get together and honor our elders. And so when I heard that it was going to become a category 1 holiday, like I thought, wow, that is so cool. I watched Ashley Ang's video, and so I there are people like Ashley who would if she were to take a test on that day, like she would have to miss that because they're celebrating on that specific day. So, I think that's awesome that they were able to change that. I mean, for our family, we would meet on January 1st. But I will say, like, even with my in-laws, when Lunar New Year came, we're all talking about it. It's like Happy Lunar New Year. It's always in our conversation. So,
I love this. I love that this holiday applies across a variety of different languages, nationalities, and cultures, but is still important and treasured. So, I mean, I'm very excited that Brookline is a locus of that. I think it's just us and New York City and San Francisco that currently honor this holiday, as you call it, a Category 1 holiday, which is to me quite amazing. Um, I would also just like to ask you if there's something that we didn't cover today, but that you wanted to make sure that people know about.
oh, okay. So, yeah, I do want to say so. Casey No Miller is a Brookline deputy superintendent for student services, and she organized this effort in Brookline. She organized ordering these signs that says "Stop Asian Hate," and you're going to start seeing them around Brookline if you haven't already. And Tommy Vitolo, he generously donated 100. So, and if there's anyone who's watching who would also like to get one of these signs, I know that you can get them through the Baffin Facebook page. And if you just get on that, you'll see the sign and you'll see a link where you can order it. And then the other thing that's happening is since May is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, there is an effort. I believe it's Alicia Sue, and she's a retired teacher from Lawrence, I think, for 30 years, and they're putting these big signs where kids can actually come and help make these signs. And each of the schools is going to have a display for the month of May. And if anyone's interested in that, then I believe you can go to the Baffin Facebook page too. I think the information is there. But if not, you can always contact me too, and I could direct you to the right people.
Wonderful. That name keeps coming up, Alicia Sue. I guess she's a revered teacher of more than 30 years from the Brookline Public Schools. And her name keeps coming up in conversations as one of the people that's the most engaged, that's kind of a go-to person that's been looking at these issues for years. So I hope I'll be able to get her on the show eventually. But it sounds like right now she's pretty busy helping kids make signs, which is great. I'm an apartment dweller on the 6th floor, so I'm not sure that my Stop Asian Hate sign will be visible from the street. But, I have to consider getting a neon version of it, I guess, something that's really visible. And, I know you've been in Brookline for 6 years, and that you're serving so actively in our government and an advisory committee. Do you think real change is possible in Brookline, Susan? And what would that look like? What would success look like on this topic?
Do I think that real change is possible? Absolutely. I definitely think it's possible. And I think real change begins with like people like you, Eric, who do such a fabulous job with a show like this, The Arc of Justice, and having these conversations. And, I think so, like at Florida Rough and Ridley, their motto is be kind, work hard, and help others. And I think if we all just, try to show kindness in our conversations, if we choose love, if we address hate and confront these things that we wouldn't want for our children or our grandchildren, I think real change happens. And even if like one person watches and sees this and shows kindness and love, I think that's where we have a ripple effect, and that little flame will become a fire.
Wow, that's just beautiful. Thank you so much for putting it so succinctly and giving us some hope as well as some specific concrete actions that we can take as Brookline residents, all of us, to support the Asian community. Susan, I have to thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been trying to get you on for a while, but like all other Asian activists in Brookline, you have been extremely busy lately, which I guess is both good and bad, but I'm really, really grateful to you.
I'm grateful to you, Eric. I'm
Thank